Hello and welcome back to the FinVestors podcast. This is your host Rashmina Lalani. Today we are going to talk about something which has garnered a lot of attention from businesses, financial institutions, economists, and governments alike, and that is retirement planning. Is it really as important as they say? And is there a dollar value we can reach which can help us retire comfortably, if not luxuriously? Until the early 19th century, most people in America used to work as long as they lived. The only time people ceased to work permanently was when there is some disability or something which hindered their capacity to work. Other than that, most of the American workers planned to work as long as they could. A couple of companies during that time were providing their employees with defined benefit plan, which means a series of pension when someone retires. However, most people had no blessing of such a plan, so working until throughout the life was the only option. Then came the era in mid-19th century when the retirement concept was introduced and the full retirement age was born. A full retirement age is when someone, a worker, is entitled to receive the full Social Security benefits. This Social Security is a program which was created by government in August 1935, and the aim of this program was to provide economic and financial security to American retirees. The full retirement age for people born between 1943 to 1954 is 66 years of age, and from 1955 up until 1959, this age was gradually increased. By the end of 1960, this age reached at 67 years of age. So from 1960 to present, the full retirement age is 67 years of age. Although one is entitled to receive partial or reduced Social Security benefits when reached the age of 62, the full benefits can only be received when you have reached the age of full retirement. A critical point to understand here is that when these financial geniuses were designing this full retirement age, the assumption was that most people would live only a couple of more years. As per CDC, the average age of people in 1960 was 69.7 years, whereas based on the scientific development in modern medicine, an average person with an average health can live as long as 79 years, which is 12 more years from full retirement age and 16 more years from the partial or reduced benefit retirement age of 62. If you read between the lines, you can see here that if Social Security program assume that people are going to live only a couple of more years after the full retirement age, it's not hard to make sense that no one will be able to live comfortably only on Social Security benefits. Many opponents of this program believe that government will not be able to provide the benefits at all it promised to many expected retirees. This whole debate is out of the scope of this episode, but the point I'm trying to make here is that social benefits might not be enough to retire comfortably. Let's look at some factual data to understand why these benefits might not be enough. The average Social Security benefit in 2021 is $1,600 per month, which makes it annual average income to $19,200 per year. For the sake of this discussion, let's have a round figure of $19,000 per year. Is it enough to live comfortably if you're solely dependent only on Social Security benefits? We don't know yet. Let's look at some numbers to know that. As per Economic Research and Information Center, Mississippi is ranked as one of the cheapest states to live in USA. The average cost of living in that state is around $30,000 per year. This estimate can be different based on your personal living style, your needs, your family situation, and many other factors which decide how much you're spending on your spending buckets. But let's make this $30,000 our base case and compare it to $19,000 from Social Security benefits. Clearly, there will be a deficit of $11,000, which is quite significant number. And that's where the importance of retirement planning kicks in. According to US Census Bureau, The median income required to retire at above the age of 65 is $73,000. And on average, America is saving in their retirement accounts around $142,000 per Vanguard survey of its 30 million clients. If you do the math, these savings would be wiped out in just 2 years after retirement, which brings me back to my point that retirement planning is as important as they say. Now that we understand how important retirement planning is, let's get into the factors to consider when trying to reach that magical number of assets you need to accumulate to retire comfortably. There's never going to be an estimate which would match the exact number you need, and if someone tells you that you need $1 million to retire at X age or $2 million to retire at Y age, reconsider if you want to believe that proposition. Every household is unique, every individual is unique, and so is the retirement requirement is also going to be unique. For sure, we need to develop a baseline case where we can have a model on which to tweak, but always have in mind that whatever that number is going to be, which will make you feel retired comfortably, is always going to be an educated guess. There are many tools available online which can help you determine how much you will need when you retire. The problem with relying solely on such models that use X amount of spending, X amount of assumed rate of returns and earnings is that these models are way too simplistic and generic. I think it's a good idea to use such models and have a baseline functioning plan and then try to tweak and personalize it based on the factors I'm going to discuss next. The first important factor to consider is longevity. How long you think you're going to live. You cannot move forward with the planning process until this question is answered. There is no way you can predict this number with 100% accuracy, but you can always look at your family history, your relatives, your parents, and your own health and estimate how long you will be able to live. If you have a family history of people living longer, you will most likely live longer as well. There are many online calculators there which can give you an idea of how long you might live. I found the Living to 100 life expectancy calculator quite good at this job. It takes into account one's stress level, one's physical and mental health, family history, eating habits, nutrition, exercise, and many other variables which can profoundly impact your life. You can find the link to the website in the description of my episode. I'm not endorsing anything. It's just my personal preference that I like this calculator. Remember that whatever number you get is just going to be a best educated guess, and there are many natural and unknown factors involved in how long one lives. COVID caused the loss of many lives, as do many natural disasters that are never predictable by the longest mile. Remember that whatever your number is, it's going to be not certain. Along with longevity, one consideration that has to be known in advance, and you can always control this number, is when do you want to retire? If you're going to live until 90 years of age and you want to retire at 65, that means you have 25 plus years of planning for your retirement. But if you're going to retire at 60 and live until 90 years of age, that means you have 30 years to plan. Whenever you want to retire early, most likely you will have to follow a very stringent and disciplined plan. The second factor is going to be your future income. What are the sources of your future income? The question holds a very significant importance here, because what you're trying to do here is you're trying to match your future expenses with your future income. The first consideration is, will you depend solely on Social Security? And if so, what will be your monthly Social Security benefit? You can use this online calculator on Social Security Administration website, which provides an estimate based on your age, how many years you have worked, and what was your earning. You can find the link to their website in the description of my episode. The second consideration is, what would that look like when you retire? If you have an employer-sponsored retirement plan like 401k, 403b, or SEP or Simple IRA, what will be the future value of those accounts? Many factors go into knowing the future value of your employer-sponsored retirement accounts, like how much are you contributing? How much is your employer contributing? What's going to be your earnings growth rate? And at what age do you want to retire? I personally like NerdWallet's basic future value calculator for 401k, which can give you an idea of how much your portfolio will grow when you retire. The third consideration to have is, do you have a personal retirement account like IRA or Roth IRA, or do you have a brokerage account which you contribute regularly and you want to use it in your retirement? The fourth would be, are you invested in any business which gives you passive income, and will you remain invested when you retire? Do you have a rental property which gives you rental income, or would you remain want to invest it in that rental property when you retire? The objective here is to forecast the future dollar value of your income based on what you have today. Many variables and assumptions go into deriving the numbers. For example, inflation, economic situations, political influences, and tax code, and then your own constant personal changing circumstances. All these future income sources combined will form a base case for your retirement, which you can continue to tweak as your life progresses. Now our third factor is going to be cost of living. We are going to further break it down into smaller components. The first and most considerable expense most Americans have is housing expense. What would these costs look like when you retire? Are you going to be a house owner, or you will be renting someone else's place? If you are going to own your own house, are you planning to stay there or sell it or downsize? Are you planning to move to another state? If that's the case, you have to do your homework today and see what the numbers look like when you take those decisions in your retirement. How much are going to be your property taxes, and what will happen to your utility and maintenance bills? Your financial advisor can help you with estimation of these numbers and track your budget. But if not, there are many apps that not only track your expenses but also categorize your spending into different buckets and give you those nice, colorful pie charts and graphs where you can see how much you're spending on each category. My husband likes to use this Mint app, and I like to use my own created financial Excel sheet. Whatever way you use, the point is to actually track your budget, track your expenses today, so you can have an idea for tomorrow that how these expenses will grow in the future and what can you do about them in the retirement. Using dollar value today and how much you spend on each expense category can help you build a baseline case, and you can then tweak it to know what happens when the property taxes increases, what happens when the housing prices fall, and what happens if your rent is increased by X amount in your retirement. No one ever predicted that COVID will happen. No one ever predicted that work from house would be a thing. No one ever predicted that stock markets would fall almost by 30% by the end of September 2022. No one knew that the mortgage rates would go as high as 6% plus. And no one knew that housing market would witness a significant price decline. So the best way to factor in unknown variables is by creating different scenarios with your base case. If you are self-employed, you already know how much you are paying for your health insurance. But if you have employer-sponsored health insurance plan, you might not have any idea of how much your expenses will grow when you retire and you don't have this employer-sponsored plan. As one ages, the need for healthcare also goes up. So it's beneficial to include these costs in your retirement plan. I was listening to this podcast episode by Robert Kiyosaki, who's the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he was talking about the long-term care expenses, and he made it a point that a lot of times these long-term care costs not only wipe out all of the retirement savings for people, but also cause a lot of burden of debt on their shoulders. The average cost of a semi-private room for a long-term care is $70,000 per year, and there is no denying the fact that with time, this cost is definitely going to go up. So an insurance system as a part of your retirement plan can definitely help you save a lot of financial and mental trouble in the future. The third and last significant component of cost of living is your taxes. This is going to be most likely the first or second biggest expense of your retirement. And no matter what happens, you have to pay the tax dollars to Uncle Sam. As per Social Security Administration, most retirees will have to pay tax on at least 80% of their Social Security benefits. If you have tax deferred accounts like 401k or your IRA, your withdrawals will be taxed at your ordinary income tax rate. Tax deferred accounts let you defer the taxes, so you do not pay the taxes today, but you have to pay them later at your withdrawals. If you own a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k, there will be no tax liability when you withdraw, as they are not tax deferred accounts, meaning that when you put the money in the account, you have to pay taxes on them today. A regular brokerage account would require you to pay capital gains taxes if and when you sell your holdings. If you have rental property, you will continue to pay ordinary income tax on your rental income. Tax legislation changes based on who is sitting in the Oval Office, so always have room in your plan to incorporate these changes. Again, it's best to create a retirement plan based on different scenarios so that when something happens which is far beyond your expectation, you're not taken by surprise and you are financially and mentally ready to incorporate that change. There is a lot that goes into a good retirement planning, and doing homework today can save you from financial and mental troubles later on. But let's not sway away from the goal here. The goal is to save today to reap the benefits tomorrow. At the end of all this exercise, we need to know the number we need to put away every month starting today so we can have a comfortable living when we cease to work. There are 3 ways you can ensure that you achieve whatever the number is, which is needed to make you financially independent when you retire. Create an emergency fund so you are not going to touch your retirement assets when there is financial insecurity. Create a fund for at least 6 to 8 months or whatever that number is, which gives you personal satisfaction, and invest that money in liquid assets like high yield savings account or 3 to 6 month CDs. And many big brokers like Merrill Lynch, Wells Fargo, and Chase, they offer special high rate savings account to their clients. So you might want to inquire with your bank if you are eligible for that. This emergency fund is definitely not part of your retirement savings account, but it is there to make sure that you stay afloat in times of difficulty, just like right now when inflation and interest rates are so high. People's budget have been expended by the long mile, and this kind of fund can help them, can save them from actually getting a lot of debt burden on their shoulders. Remember, it's important to invest this emergency fund into very liquid assets, because if it's just sitting there doing nothing, it loses the value by the very minute it's sitting idle. The second step you can do is spend on your needs, then save, and if something is left, then spend on your wants or your desires. Spending on your desires should not be a sin as long as your saving bucket keeps growing. Don't feel guilty about spending on wants. Everyone needs to do that to feel fulfilled once in a while. But if you make it a habit of spending on your needs first, saving, and then spending on your wants later, it will give you financial peace, financial satisfaction, and can make you feel financially secure. Now that we understand the concept of saving, the third point is going to be invest your savings. Often people put their money in the brokerage or retirement accounts, and either they forget or don't know that accounts are mere tools or buckets and need to invest that cash to grow it. Now remember that if you end up with $1 million of assets when you retire, the goal is not to deplete your assets. You do not want to kill the goose that's laying golden eggs, but the goal is to create a sizable investment portfolio which can provide you most of your monthly expenses as a form of returns. This is going to be all for today.